We have joining us today Mr. BJ Brugman. And BJ is the co-founder and CEO at Distinct, which is an ag tech startup based out of Ames, Iowa. Let's go ahead and bring BJ up and allow him to share his slides and begin his presentation. BJ, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Johnson. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thanks for hosting. I was thinking about just your role in hosting, Dr. Johnson. You have like this voice for hosting, and I know The Bachelor is probably looking for a new host, and you've got some Chris Harrison vibes. So, we could pass along your resume, I think, after hosting this. So thanks for having us today. I'll start off again. Thanks to this group for letting Distinct participate in this conference, and some great presentations so far, and I'm sure more to come. I want to talk a little bit about innovation for the swine industry by taking the MAIA approach, which stands for the most advanced yet acceptable approach. I'll give you a little background on Distinct and what we do in the swine industry, talk through the MAIA principle and how that applies to swine innovation. I'll talk through a couple failures that we had as a company early on in our development cycle, and then kind of ultimately think about what does this look like? What does the MAIA principle look like in the swine industry when applied correctly? So just to give you a quick overview of Distinct and what we do in the swine industry, Distinct is really a sensor platform for confined livestock. So talking today in the context of swine, but what we bring to producers is ultimately, first and foremost, connectivity to the site. So we deploy a completely hardware agnostic, off-the-shelf network gateway that brings connectivity to the site. From there, because that device is hardware agnostic, we allow that site or those production companies to connect whatever devices that they want, or whatever devices that they need to answer the questions that they have of that site or of that facility. And then finally, we consolidate all that information into a customizable real-time dashboard where users or folks inside that organization with various roles or responsibilities can see that information that's relevant to their role in the organization. So that's the context of how I'm thinking about the MAIA principle in the eyes of Distinct. So what is the MAIA principle? It's actually something I didn't even know what the MAIA principle was. We think we were applying a lot of these principles, but we didn't know that it was called the MAIA principle, as coined by Raymond Loewy. I actually found out about this principle through a consulting firm, some friends of mine that run a consulting firm called Paythom, who wrote a blog post about this and talked about what is the most advanced yet acceptable solution that can be deployed in an industry or across a customer base. And Raymond Loewy coined this term several years ago, but then became known really as the father of industrial design. And so he did a lot of work early on in his career, working with large companies, brands you've certainly recognized, names you've undoubtedly been familiar with. One project in particular that I think is relevant, his work with NASA, and relevant because yesterday we saw another person go up to space. The early design feature that he added to one of the first space capsules, the mission was really get someone to space and get them back. And Raymond Loewy, his contribution to the design of the space capsule was, we should put a window in it. We should put a window in the space capsule so that when someone goes up, they could actually see out and see Earth from space. So just an interesting contribution. It was when the mission was get up and get back. He thought about it as maybe we should be able to see what it's like looking out the window when we're up there. And one of the main things that Raymond Loewy talked about was thinking about designing products for the future, but delivering that future gradually. And one of the best examples of that, and probably the most obvious example we can think of, is the evolution of the iPod and what ultimately became the iPhone. And if you think about that in the context of the design of the iPhone, Apple probably understood that there was an opportunity to put all of this information in your pocket. Opportunity to give you the internet in your pocket, give you the phone in your pocket, give you the calculator in your pocket, give you the camera in your pocket, give you music in your pocket. And they could have delivered all of that at one time. They could have let technology evolve and delivered all of that at once. But what they did was they backed off and said, what's the most important thing? What's the lowest hanging fruit? What's the easiest thing we could pick off that's in someone's pocket and that we could revolutionize and start delivering the future gradually, start adding features, start adding technology, thinking about delivering that future gradually, so that the user just isn't overwhelmed. And we think about that as, what if they had shown up with all of that while we were all using Blackberries? It would have been a head-to-head competition with BlackBerry, and people would have said, no, I love the keyboard. And they would have said, no, but you can do all this on your phone. It's like, no, it's okay. I like the keyboard. Apple started at the very beginning, thought about where the future was going to be, where we were going to replace all the devices in the pocket, but started at the beginning, said, let's start by putting music in the pocket first. And I think about this and just kind of the customer mindset and how this applies to real life. And what Raymond Loewy says is, customers look forward to new things, but they have a fear of anything totally new. And so how I think this applies in real life, there's a restaurant right across the road from our office here in Ames, and they've had pretty much the exact same menu since Christmas. And I go there probably at least once a week, and I always order the same sandwich because I know what it tastes like. I know it fills me up. I know what I'm getting. But I always think to myself, gosh, it'd be nice if they would add a couple things that were new. And this is no joke. On Monday, they changed the menu. They changed the menu, but they took away my sandwich. So now the menu is totally new for me. So I wanted a few things new, maybe like a different side or maybe different drinks. But now the menu is totally new for me. I think it also applies as we think about how people evaluate their jobs. I think oftentimes people daydream or fantasize about a new job in a new city, or what it would be like with a new boss, or what it would be like in a new industry. Maybe it's just as simple as a new travel schedule. But what keeps people back in a job that they don't like is the fear of anything totally new. They look forward to some new things, but changing jobs is totally new. And so people stay in a job that they don't like for a long time. Bringing it back to the swine industry, there are a lot of new things that show up every single year at the World Pork Expo. We're just at probably 45 days past the last World Pork Expo, and people go to the Pork Expo looking for new things. Customers go there to look, feel, talk about the new things. How many of those things did we come home with? How many of those are practical implementation things that can change the way we do business tomorrow? So as I think about designing and delivering innovation for the swine industry, and how Distinct thinks about designing and delivering innovation for the swine industry, where we try to wrap our heads around is, what is the generation 1 iPod equivalent for swine producers? What is the music in your pocket solution, knowing full well that we want to get to that solution where we've got music, we've got the phone, we've got the calculator, we've got the camera? What are those generation 1 type questions? And you think about generation 1, prior to the generation 1 iPod, you required a physical disc. You had to have a physical CD, or you had to have a physical tape, and you had to have multiple physical devices in order to hear the music from several different artists. And the generation 1 iPod took the physical disc away. And I think that ties directly into the swine industry, where we think about answering these basic questions around feed, water, and air, where we have to be physically present to answer these questions in most cases today. And we think, well, what is a generation 1 iPod question for feed? A generation 1 question is feed even present at that site? And is feed present? Can we answer that question without someone actually physically being there and throwing a golf ball onto the side of the bin and just to see if it's there? Water consumption, same thing. Is water even flowing? Is the water on at the barn? Do pigs have access to water? And think about it as a generation 1 question with air. Is the power even on? Yes, we care about ventilation and airflow and optimizing all that information, but is the power even on to run the fans? These are things that are generation 1 type questions I think the industry is still looking to address. So I kind of talk about a couple examples of the Maya principle at Distinct, and a couple really, I guess, humbly, kind of some of our failures before we thought about thinking about the most acceptable yet advanced solution for our customers. And so in the early days of Distinct, my co-founder, Thomas Hornbeck, and I, so Thomas has a PhD in software engineering, And what we built together was a way to eliminate the manual counting of pigs. So wrote the software program to identify and count pigs in a pen. And we thought it was the sexiest thing ever. And we took that technology out to a few customers and said, this is awesome, let's plug this in. And they said, yeah, I don't have internet. I don't have internet. But it's really cool. It would be really cool if I had internet. And actually, while you're at it, why don't you provide the internet at the site first and provide a way for all the devices to be connected, not just yours? We listened to that. So what we created was a standalone cellular gateway that allows for multiple inputs and outputs. And by multiple, I mean not just our devices. You know, we're not egotistical enough to think that we're going to be the ones that bring every single device that gets deployed in the swine barn from now until eternity. We brought a device that brings connectivity to the site and allows for any device to be connected to start answering questions of the barn. So you'd have thought, okay, you guys, you've clicked with the Maya principle. You understand delivering the most advanced yet acceptable solution to customers. We didn't. We did it again. We messed it up again, and we overshot again. So we said, now you have connectivity at the site. Wow, this is going to allow us to ask really, really advanced and complex questions of the site. So we integrated some facial recognition technology to identify specific individuals entering the barn. Our customers had problems with biosecurity. We thought they wanted to know exactly who was entering that facility. And as we took that technology out there, what we found was customers today didn't even know if someone was visiting that site at all, let alone who, let alone what time. They didn't even know if someone was there to do chores today. So what we created was a simple reporting system using some really, really affordable sensors to track when the doors are open and for how long a person remained on that site. So thinking about the Maya principle, the most advanced solution in our eyes was, well, facial recognition. Let's go to the moon with facial recognition. We backed it all the way off to what was acceptable. Acceptable in the eyes of our customers was just simply answering the question, was someone there today? And this is how that looks. This is real data. This is a real report for how this information was collected at this site. So we simply mounted a door switch on the door, and we're able to track then, was that door open? And then what time was that door open? And I think when we approach it with a Maya mentality, the most advanced yet acceptable solution, the result here allows us to ask even better questions of this facility. So what you can see here, what happened on the 6th? The differentiation between the green and the red bars, the green is a normal visit. The red is a visit that was designated as outside of the working hours for that enterprise. We had 3 visits outside of working hours for this enterprise. That allows us to ask a good question. What was going on the 6th? Another opportunity to ask questions, or for your team to follow up specifically based on information that they have. What happened on the 13th? Why were there 11 visits on the 13th? And another good question, who did chores on the 19th and 20th? I see nothing was registered on the 19th and 20th. So as we think about this, it's a simple solution that allows us to know more about that site today than we did yesterday, because yesterday we didn't even know if someone was in there. Today we're able to answer the question, was someone there? What time were they there? How frequently were they there? And I think about this kind of as this is an image of a shopkeeper's bell. And one of the phrases that Raymond Loewy uses is bring designs that are familiar yet innovative. And I think about the Royal Cafe in Northwest Iowa, where I'm from. There's a bell on the door, and Carol works in the back and in the front. But when Carol's in the back making food, she hears this bell, the door is open. Carol doesn't know who's there, but Carol knows someone is there. Someone is here, someone needs her attention. And that's the same kind of approach we've applied here. Today, without facial recognition technology, we don't know who, but we know someone is there. That's peace of mind. And in these cases, when we see the bell now going off on our phone or on our computer, it allows us to ask better questions or specifically direct attention of our employees to sites that may need our attention on a given day, like the 13th. So again, going back to that concept and those bullet points around design for the future, but deliver that future gradually. we learned the lesson the hard way early at Distinct as we overshot. We overshot what our customers were ready for, and brought facial recognition technology when we probably just needed a door switch. We just wanted to answer the question, was someone there? And if you think about then, what's the next step in delivering the future gradually? Was someone there? The next question is, for how long? And that's another really simple question that we can answer. And you can start to see what the building blocks for this would mean as we start to collect all this data for the industry. We ask the question, is it important right now to know precise bend level? When our customers have told us time and time again, I just want to know if feed is present at the site. That would be a really good first step. If you think about sites that are spread, multiple sites across huge geographies, big teams, I just want to know if feed is available for those pigs at the site. That would be a really good first step. And we think, what's the next step then in delivering the future? The next step may be, is feed there? Next step is, am I about to run out? And we can start to answer that question, which we're doing today. And think, okay, is cough detection. There's technology out there available today that allows us to do that. But you think about the Maya approach, the most advanced yet acceptable solution. Is that where we should start? Or should we start with real-time water consumption? And then do we start to signal, here's the variance. Here was a 20% spike. Here was a 20% decrease, and start to direct the traffic of the operation that way, getting talented people to that site immediately when we start to see those outliers occur. So kind of coming back, now that we've talked about the Maya principle, you've heard kind of our failures and our evolution, I guess is how we've gotten to the solution we're at today. We backed all the way up and said, again, I mentioned it, we're not egotistical enough to think that we're the only people that will provide connected devices in these barns from now until eternity. But what we know is that if we're going to bring that technology, there has to be a foundation on which to connect this information. So that's what we brought. We took the Maya approach and said, the most advanced yet acceptable solution first is establishing connectivity at the site. And we did that with the end in mind, again, thinking you want to connect all devices, not just the devices that Distinct brings. So we're able to connect and deploy any sensors that can answer the questions that the enterprise is asking. And we think about who will say no to that? Who will say no to this version of music in your pocket? The first step of music in your pocket is get the sites connected and be able to connect devices that you want to connect to answer your questions. And ultimately, who's going to say no to consolidation of piles and piles of data and information that's just sitting there and transforming that information into actionable insights for a team? So in summary, I think what the Maya principle and this Maya mindset as we approach innovation to the industry, at Distinct, but I think others as well, is Maya helps us uncover the most basic customer needs. And it forces us to ask the question to our customers, is this really what you want? And I think as a founder, it's really, really easy to be love drunk in your product. It's really easy to think what you have is the very, very best solution. And you can skip the step of going and talking to the customer and asking them, is this really the simplest solution that's going to meet your need? I think the Maya mindset and the Maya approach improves the speed of addressing today's need at scale. When a system is designed around customizable software instead of the inflexibility of hardware solutions, it becomes really, really simple to start picking off that low-hanging fruit. Our customers aren't going to make a wrong decision or feel constrained with hardware because the system is totally open. We establish connectivity at the site, allow you to connect to whatever device you want. And the awesome part about software is the speed at which you can evolve. That door report wasn't even a thing 8 weeks ago. It wasn't even a thing 8 weeks ago, but we created that solution really fast because it's a software solution. We didn't have to go back to the lab and iterate on a sensor or on a piece of hardware. We're able to create that really, really fast based on our customers' needs. And ultimately, I think what the Maya approach and the Maya mindset does is differentiate Distinct. I think this helps move producers to that starting point in the deployment of their precision livestock journey. And to kind of summarize, again, goes to the last point is, we've gotten very, very skilled at having that conversation with producers and helping them understand what is that generation 1 iPod? What is the music in your pocket starting point for precision technology. And the precision technology journey really begins with a conversation with Distinct and helping you get started. So with that, thank you so much for your time. Glad to take any questions that you may have. And I did post a link in that first slide too, if anybody cares to read more about Raymond Loewy or the Maya principle.
Thank you very much, BJ. Excellent presentation, and really, I think, foundational for people that want to understand technology implementation in any industry. I wasn't familiar with the Maya concept at all, but I think you gave a great overview, and I think it fits our industry very well. We talk about farmers being resistant to change, and I think a lot of times we think that farmers are more resistant to change than other industries. I haven't spent a lot of time in other industries, but I have to imagine that we're not that much different. We're not as unique as we think we are. For folks that are participating in the chat, thank you very much for your questions and your comments. Please keep those coming in. Thank you to Dr. Pullman and others who've been very active on there. I'm getting a few text messages from folks that I don't see names up here. So Dr. Brown and others, jump on the chat and contribute. BJ, I want to ask you a question really about the application of this technology and the Generation 1 questions. Where are you going to look for the questions for Generation 2? Once you develop your first product, where are you going to get that feedback from to understand what's the next stage in the evolution going to look like?
Yeah, well, it's all just driven by the customer conversation. But I think that what we found early is that as we deploy the Generation 1 technology, it exposes the very clear opportunity to ask the next question. And it's, I think, sequential. So we've deployed hardware to replace antiquated alarm systems. We're monitoring is feed present. We're monitoring manure pits. We're doing the door switch to confirm that chores are done. We're monitoring sustainability metrics around propane and electrical usage, all those things. And when you start look at those foundational things, so use the door report as your first example. Generation 2 then is, when we started working with that customer, the next question was, okay, how long then was that person at that site? They were there at 7:15. How long were they there? Mm-hmm. And we deployed a motion sensor on the other side of the shower. And so now you can say, all right, someone was there. The customer drove the evolution because they wanted to know the next question. And we answered that really, really simply with a very affordable off-the-shelf sensor. And then you think, okay, well, what could I do with that? Well, I know someone was there. I know how long they were there. Is it possible to tie that data to production, to historical production? Is there a correlation between the time someone spends in a facility and how well those pigs perform? I think that's how we're thinking about the evolution, just answering the questions step by step.
Very good. It sounds like the initial hardware that you're talking about is not prohibitively expensive. Is that a fair statement to make?
That would be a very, very fair statement to make. Our approach has been, this technology has existed for quite some time. The hardware that we're deploying has been existed and deployed in other industries. What we think is, if we can make it about the software and the answers that the software delivers to our customers, that's really the value. And so we've tried to take hardware completely off the table, and we work with customers. We have some expertise in what's the right hardware, what are going to be the right choices of devices to choose. But it's not our business approach to buy hardware, mark it up, 10x. We think the solutions are very, very affordable, and the technology, of that hardware itself is very, very durable. They're very, very reliable. So we've tried to just approach it that way.
Well, and the lower the cost of entry, the wider the range of producers are going to find it acceptable. So I think that's an easy way to keep your focus with exactly what you're saying with Maya.
Yeah, exactly right. Is we think, if the questions are important to answer, I think producers want to ask what are the Generation 1 questions? And we think if you price yourself out of the market with expensive hardware or try to make money as a company with hardware, customers won't deploy. They won't ask very many questions of that facility. So you think, if I've got 4 feed bins or 8 feed bins on a site, and you're selling sensors marked up with a whole bunch of margin built into that, we don't think very many. I think David Rosero talked about that. Is it's got to be very, very affordable, and that cost to entry, needs to be very, very low.
Yeah, agreed. Last question, most important. What was the sandwich? What was the favorite sandwich they took away from you?
Salmon sandwich. Sandwich. Yeah, it had bacon on it. It was awesome. It was pretty awesome.
Hopefully they replaced it with a wonderful pork burger.
I don't know. Maybe I'll complain next week. I'll be polite though.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, BJ. I really appreciate your contributions to the conference, and good luck on your journey and move through these different generations of helping producers.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson.